I need to talk about an experience I had at the Chicago airport that shook me to my core. I would like to say up front that I am well aware of my level of fame. I am not a major celebrity. I am not a household name. I am not, I have never been in my life hounded by paparazzi. I have never been scared to leave my house. It's like, do I get stopped regularly, very frequently, asking if we went to college together, or if I was at Dave's party last night, or if we worked together at the Starbucks in Bakersfield. Yes, that happens to me a lot. And the answers are no, no, we did not. We did not. I did not. No. I was in your house for many years in the background while you did homework, and your brain is glitching. That is what's happening. And I feel like this context is necessary for the story because it just sets the stage for how bizarre this is for me. When I landed. I have two nights, 4 shows in Chicago at the Den Theater. And I landed on Wednesday night. And when I got off the plane at midnight, I took a very late flight. I always take a late flight because then I get more time with my kids the day before, whatever. But I always land really late and I'm always very tired. So I land and it's midnight and I get off the plane and I'm looking around as one does when they go to an unfamiliar airport. I needed to know where, ground transportation was, where baggage claim was, blah, blah, blah. You've been to an airport, you've gotten off a plane. And I see this family. And I really don't think anything of it because a lot of people are getting off this plane and a lot of people are families. I stand another second and I hear Miss Sher. And I turn around and they are standing with now photos. Like they have photos with like foam boards underneath and Sharpies on them. And they say, "Can we have your autograph?" And I said, "I need to pee," because I needed to pee. And so I went to the bathroom and I peed and I thought about what just happened. And I was like, that's weird, but maybe I'm in the Chicago, maybe there's a bigger fan base. I don't know. But something was just like, something felt so off in my soul about this. And so I went out. They were still standing there and they were like, "Can I have your autograph?" And I was like, "Sure." Again, it's midnight. I'm tired. One of the girls, or there was only one girl, she was holding like fan art from this cartoon I did for Disney Channel called Star versus the Forces of Evil. Great cartoon. Great cartoon, just for what it's worth. I'm very proud of it. Not the point. She was holding Star fan art, and the other 2 boys and the mom, I assume, were holding like middle pictures from the middle and like headshots and I don't know, a lot of stuff. So I'm signing and I'm just like, what is weird to me about this? What's extra weird? Because sometimes people do recognize me. Sometimes people do, they know exactly who I am and they're like, "Hey, I'm a fan." And I'm like, "Oh, like, thank you." But again, something's off. And so I said, "Were you just on my flight?" And they said, "No, they were not on my flight." And I said, "Oh," because this was not a baggage claim. This was at the gate. This was like at the gate. Like this was in the airport. You had to have a ticket to be there. And so I said, "Okay, why are you here?" And they said, "Oh, we're going to Detroit. We're flying to Detroit and our flight got delayed." And I said, "Oh, that makes sense." And then I thought for another second and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Well, so I said, "How did you know I was here?" And they said, "Oh, we tried to get tickets to your show in Chicago and it was sold out." I said, here's what I didn't say. I didn't say, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't answer my question. What I said was, "Oh, no, it isn't." Because I'm doing 4 shows in Chicago and none of them were sold out. They weren't. And I know that they weren't. I know that they're not because brag, but most of my shows sell out. Most of my shows do sell out. And I'm notified immediately when they are, because when they do sell out, I am faced with the very real decision of, do I add another show? I have to, in that moment, immediately gauge my exhaustion level. And in Chicago, I was not faced with that decision because I'm doing 4 shows at a large venue. So they just did not sell out. So I said, "No, it isn't." And they said, "Oh, yes, it is." And I said, "No, it isn't." And they said, "Well, yes, it is. I mean, there must be a glitch in your website." And I said, "Okay," because it was now 12:20. So I'm standing for another 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I don't know. Again, a lot of pictures to sign. And I can't let it go because it's too bizarre. So I say, sorry, how, of course I apologized. I apologized. I was like, I'm sorry. How did you know I was here though? And they just kept saying versions of, we're from Chicago. And I just kept being like, that's not, how did you know my gate? How did you know my gate? And they said, and I was like, did you know I was coming in tonight? And they said, no. And I said, oh, so do you just walk around with pictures of me and Sharpies? And they laughed, like they chuckled and did not answer my question. And I was tired. So I said, okay, I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night. And the mom said, oh, can my daughter have a picture with you? And for the first time in my life, I said, first time in my life, I said no. I said no. I said, I'm so sorry, but no. Like I was in a mask. My eyes were bloodshot. My face was greasy. My hair was greasy. Like I just got off the plane. It's midnight. So I said, I'm so sorry, but no. And I hope she understood. Maybe she didn't. I don't know. She might have gone home and said, wow, even Cher is an asshole, because she didn't even take a picture with my daughter, who is a super fan. And I just have to be okay with that. I have to be okay. Life is just learning to be okay with people maybe thinking that you're an asshole. Anyway, I'm deeply confused. I'm deeply, deeply confused because how did they know I was there? How did they know I was there? I racked my brain. Did I accidentally reveal my flight information on social media somehow? And even if I did, which I didn't, does that mean that they bought a ticket, like specifically to meet me there at the gate? Or maybe they really did already have a flight there, and that means that they just happened to have, and they brought the photos, the phone board, the stuff, everything. Like they were prepared. They were well prepared. And I don't, help me. I don't, what this is, how did they, what happened? How did they know I was there?